Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born.
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was a distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
There are
limitations in all healthcare sectors, not just this country, where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors and nurses to provide that quality care. When we're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, emotional support that they need, advice, that gap. You are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patient.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Takia Thompson, and this morning we're starting off with some international and regional news. For the international side, U.S. Donald Trump chose to impose 20% charge on all cargo shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz being one of the world's most critical oil passageways and has been the cornerstone of the U.S. re-escalating war with Middle Eastern Iran. Take a look at these videos.
Hello, I'm Marianne Bashiri, and this is the Iran War Today, our daily briefing, bringing you up to date with all you need to know on the US-Israel war with Iran. Well, let's start with some of today's key developments now. Donald Trump says the US is taking over the Strait of Hormuz as tensions escalate between Washington and Tehran after a week of strikes. Iran warns it will not allow the US to interfere in management of the strait as it targets US bases across the Gulf. All of this is affecting that vital waterway where shipping appears to have almost slowed to a standstill. While the renewed attacks push oil prices back up, with the cost of petrol and diesel rising once again. Well, Donald Trump says the US is now reinstating its blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz, starting immediately. In a Truth Social post, he says the US will be the guardian of the vital waterway, and there'll be a 20% charge on all cargo shipped through. But he doesn't explain how this would work. It comes after a week of escalating strikes between the US and Iran, putting their ceasefire under intense pressure. Well, speaking to Fox and Friends this morning, President Trump said, "We're taking over the strait." Have a listen.
We hit them very hard last night. Every time they send a drone, we hit them very hard. But we had a deal. What nobody knows, we had a deal. It was a done deal. And then they broke it. They always break it. We've had 10 deals with these people. And so we're just going to hit them very hard. And we're going to keep the strait, and we'll probably run it. We'll become the guardian of the strait. Maybe we'll call it the guardian angel of the strait. And we should be reimbursed for that.
Well, joining me now is our State Department correspondent, Tom Bateman, who's in Washington, and Baron Abbasi from the BBC's Persian service. Tom, to you first. President Trump says the US is going to guard the strait. How?
Well, I mean, he obviously hasn't set out how they will do that, and every attempt that the US has made previously to control the Strait of Hormuz, or at least to create a system where you can get back to transit the kind of pre-war levels of commercial ships going through there, has failed by the United States. There have been several different mechanisms which they tried to do this, but they simply haven't been able to reopen the strait. What we've seen most recently is attempts by the US to help navigate ships, not by escorting them, but largely by communicating with them close to the coast of Oman, so as far away from the Iranian side in the strait that you can get. And in those cases, when the US has tried to do that, we've seen the Iranians have attacked ships, which has been part of the general reason that we're seeing this escalation at the moment. So Mr. Trump's saying they're going to control the strait and charge a 20% fee, he says, presumably on the value of cargo on these ships. It just seems totally implausible. The other thing that Mr. Trump has said is about reimposing the US naval blockade. That is very significant. Naval blockades are, under international law, an act of war. So this is another rung on the ladder of escalation that is being announced by Mr. Trump today. CENTCOM, the US Central Command, say they expect to start reimposing the naval blockade later today. Now that is going to be a huge provocation as far as the Iranians are concerned. Getting rid of the naval blockade was one of their key ambitions that helped lead to this de-escalation in the form of that memorandum of understanding around a month ago or so. So that is going to really escalate the situation. It cuts at the heart of what the Iranian government wants and needs, which is money, reconstruction, access, the ability to sell its oil. And this is going to make that, again, harder for them. So I think we're seeing a real deterioration in the situation at the moment, at least in terms of what Mr. Trump is threatening. Whether all of that comes to pass on the ground or on the water as it is there, of course, I think we'll have to wait and see.
And Bahrain, how has Iran responded to that statement from Donald Trump?
Response has been swift and defiant. Both political and military officials have reacted to comments by Donald Trump that the U.S. will be the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. A parliamentary spokesperson has tried to make fun of Donald Trump, saying that Iran is not looking for foreign workers to protect the Strait of Hormuz, and if Donald Trump is looking for a job as a security guard, he should look elsewhere. But the military has gone even further, saying that under no circumstances will it allow the U.S. to interfere in the management of the Strait of Hormuz, as it put it. It accuses the U.S. of disrupting the flow of oil through the waterway, saying that it is the U.S., not Iran, that is disrupting shipping through the Strait of Hormuz through its military intervention. And for Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is not just a bargaining tool, it's not a negotiating tool, it's a matter of strategic importance, it's a matter of national security and sovereignty. And bear in mind that the strait was open before the war, but following the war, since then, Iran has realized that it is one of its last remaining sources of strategic leverage against the United States, and to give that up would be politically and militarily unacceptable for Iran. It believes that the war has proved to the world that the geography is on the side of the Islamic Republic, and the global markets understand that as well. But at the same time, it does not want to return to an all-out war with the United States. The foreign ministry spokesperson has said that it remains in contact with regional mediators, suggesting that it wants to keep negotiating. It doesn't want to return to war with the U.S., but it doesn't want to give that leverage up either.
As the news continues to follow, it's a story that we'll be keeping an update on, just to inform you more on. On to other news in the region. CARICOM leaders outlined measures to tackle rising costs of living across the region. Following their 51st regular meeting of the Conference of CARICOM Heads of Government under the theme CARICOM from Resilience to Renewal in a Changing World. They met to address concerns affecting people in their daily lives. Take a look at the news.
Wednesday, the price of Brent crude oil was roughly $80 per barrel, as there is no end in sight to the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. CARICOM leaders admit they have no control over oil prices, but they're pushing to diversify energy sources.
We agreed to strengthen regional cooperation to protect consumers, improve affordability, and explore additional measures that can provide relief to vulnerable households. We also agreed to strengthen consumer protection and work together to address rising prices across the community.
Steps will also be taken to reduce the cost of intra-island cargo and specific taxes.
Looking at making adjustments to the common external tariff on some of the basic food items in the region, and some countries have already asked for different arrangements to be put in place so that they can remove the common external tariff, which will reduce the cost of goods.
CARICOM has also approved the 10-point plan for reparation and agreed to increase cooperation in healthcare and other sectors.
We also agreed to establish a regional Blue Ribbon Commission on artificial intelligence to guide the development of policies that will enable the Caribbean to benefit from AI while responsibly managing its risks. We also agreed to advance a regional insurance and reinsurance strategy to better protect our people, infrastructure, and economies against hurricanes and other natural disasters.
In the meantime, CARICOM countries continue to mobilize resources to offer humanitarian assistance to those in Venezuela and Cuba. As for the controversial third country national program from the United States,
what really is each island doing? Right now, we are not clear. So we're going to decide to share some information among ourselves so possibly come out to a more definitive position in the future.
Antigua and Barbuda, for example, is set to table a white paper to outline its position on the third country national program. Jamaica has signed an MOU with the U.S. and the proposal is still being worked out. Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
Another story that we'll continue to be following up on. Now we're looking at extreme heat that's directly affecting Europe. While in the mid-months of the year, May through August is often regarded as some of the hottest months, but no one could have expected this. There are reports stating that thousands have died due to extreme heat in the UK. This has been exacerbated by the fact that wildfires have been plaguing the continent due to the heat wave with a confirmed spread through Spain. Take a look at this.
Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is to visit the site of deadly wildfires in the south of the country. At least 13 people have died in the fires in Andalusia, and Spanish authorities say that 4 of them are British. Mr. Sanchez is expected to meet emergency teams and assess the damage from the blaze. Our Spain correspondent Guy Hedgecoe has the latest.
Well, the news is relatively good in that the fire, we're told, has now been stabilised. A fire that began last Thursday, it's burned 7,000 hectares. It has claimed 13 lives as well, and 1,400 people were evacuated from their homes. Those people are now being told that they can start to return to their homes. So there is cautious optimism in terms of the situation. The conditions have improved somewhat in terms of the wind and the temperature. The Andalusian regional president, Juanma Moreno, said that he believes this is the beginning of the end of a terrifying fire. However, we do have that death toll. Just a few hours ago, it was confirmed that a 93-year-old British woman had died from her injuries in hospital caused by the fire. So, you know, people are very much still in shock down in Almeria.
Yeah, and Pedro Sanchez, Spanish Prime Minister, due there shortly. Some of the families of the victims have complained that there was a kind of lack of official guidance, lack of text messages, lack of clear information over how to evacuate.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a debate that's going to rage on, because this is an area in Almeria which it's inland from the coast. It's not, you know, a big town or city. This is a series of villages, and it's an area with some quite secluded houses. Some of them holiday homes, some of them homes where people actually live. And that appears to be where part of the problem was, and that there was possibly a communication problem in terms of letting people know when and how to evacuate. The local authorities have said that they believe that the people who died possibly did not follow evacuation instructions to the letter, but I think there is going to be a debate about the efficiency of evacuation instructions in the future.
Guy Hedgecoe, well, it's not just Spain, because in France, fire crews, including 2 firefighting planes, have rushed to the Paris region to tackle a large wildfire south of the city. Officials say the blaze, which broke out in the Fontainebleau forest along a major road, is of exceptional scale. France is facing its 3rd heatwave of the year. And in North Wales, a major incident was declared over a large-scale wildfire on Conwy Mountain. Dozens of people in the village of Kapalulu were evacuated, and neighbouring communities urged to close windows and doors and avoid affected areas. Brendan Williams has been speaking to those living nearby.
Our dog started barking madly at about 5:45 this morning, and I could smell burning, so it leapt out of bed and realised that obviously something was going on, but the whole area now up there is an evacuation zone, and we don't know when we're going home.
Beyond the smoke that engulfed their homes, the sheer scale of the blaze became apparent. On land scorched by recent hot weather and the flames fanned by 30-mile-an-hour winds, the fire quickly took hold, forcing the evacuation of dozens of homes.
Around 6 o'clock in the morning, we had a knock at the door, and I'm like, who's at the door at 6 o'clock in the morning? And there was a police officer, and I looked outside and I just seen the smoke. I thought, all right, yeah. He said, close all your windows, because obviously we've got a bit of a situation.
2 hours later, there was another knock on the door saying, pack a bag, you may have to just leave. And that to me hit home then, because it's well, how serious is this? You know, what do I put in my bag?
Firefighters were alerted to the blaze in the early hours of Sunday, and as it spread, residents in surrounding areas were also advised to close their doors and windows. The huge plume of smoke could be seen from miles around.
We've been advised not to go any further than this, but from here you can clearly see the huge blanket of smoke. You can smell it, you can feel it in your throat, and you can just about make out the flames on the mountainside. Now, conditions up there are described as particularly challenging because of this heat and this strong breeze that's been blowing all day and fueling the fire.
The weather is expected to remain extremely hot and dry for many in the coming days, which will only add to the worries of evacuated residents who don't yet know what they will be returning to. Brendan Williams, BBC News, Penmine Mawr.
More than 2,700 people may have died from heat-related causes in the UK during the extremely hot weather in May and June. Researchers say the majority of deaths came during the second heat wave in June, when a high of 37.7 degrees Celsius was recorded in Norfolk. They also say human-caused climate change was a major contributor to excess deaths. Our medical editor Fergus Walsh reports.
I've got some lovely refreshments for you.
Staying cool in the heat, this care home in Surrey is doing what it can to keep its residents safe in the latest prolonged heat wave.
Yeah. And then, Yvonne, I've got one for you, sweetie.
Heat waves are to be expected in summer, but they're getting more frequent and breaking records.
I can't remember when it's been as hot as this. It has been very, very hot this year, isn't it? More so than usual, I thought, anyway.
It's much warmer than it ever was. Even warmer than 1976, I would guess.
But I think that's all. They're very good with ice creams and ice lollies and things like that, which are, you know, very refreshing.
Extreme heat coupled with dehydration can be deadly. The elderly, babies and those with heart and lung conditions are the most vulnerable. New research has modelled the likely health effects of the most recent heat waves. In the first, a new UK high temperature for May of 35.1 Celsius was set at Kew Gardens in London, while in the second, temperature records also tumbled, with a new June high of 37.7 Celsius at Lingwood in Norfolk. In the May heat wave, researchers estimate that 550 people died in England and Wales due to heat-related causes. In the June heat wave, they put the death toll at 2,200. The study suggests that climate change added 3 to 4 degrees to maximum temperatures and was responsible for 42% of those deaths.
I think the first important thing to take away from this study is that we are now seeing really dangerous levels of heat. This is not go out and play in the sun weather. This is something we all need to be aware of the risks of. And the other thing we really need to remember is that this is not naturally occurring heat. This has been supercharged by human-caused warming.
The study makes assumptions about how people behaved in recent heat waves, so the findings may not be accurate. But the researchers say heat-related deaths in parts of northern Europe could begin to rival those which occurred during cold weather within a couple of decades, depending on how the world acts to curb human-induced climate change. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Following and stay updated on. We're about to take a short break, but when we come back, we have more engaging conversations, so stay with us.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
There are limitations in all the healthcare sectors, not just this country, where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors and nurses to provide that quality care. When we're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, the emotional support that they need, advice, that gap. You are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patients.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1, find the style number on the tag. Step 2, match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide, Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back. As the conversation continues, AI intelligence, or artificial intelligence, is transforming the way we live, work, and do business. But behind every AI application is a network of massive data centers that requires enormous amounts of electricity, water, infrastructure, and investment. We talk more about this in our Beyond the Headlines segment. As countries around the world continue to develop AI capabilities, an important question arises. What does this mean for smaller economies like those in the Caribbean? Could AI centers develop or create new job opportunities and economic opportunities, or could they place an additional pressure on already limited resources? To help us unpack these issues, we're joined this morning by economist and political analyst David Abdullah. Good morning, Mr. Abdullah. Good morning.
Good morning, Takia. Thanks for having me. But I would say, I'm a political analyst. I'm the political leader of the MSJ. So while I do make analyses and hopefully from a very objective position, I want to be, very transparent. So I am, of course, the leader of a political party. But yes, I'm an economist, and this is a very important conversation. Yesterday, in the media, we saw a headline saying New York State imposes an AI data center ban for 1 year. And they're doing that. Of course, these data centers being proposed by banning in the state of New York are probably much larger than the ones envisaged or proposed for Trinidad and Tobago. But New York State is saying that they have to first do a very careful assessment in terms of energy supply, which is essentially electricity supply, water supply, noise pollution and other environmental impacts and so on. So what we need to do in Trinidad and Tobago, I recall once there was a very important workshop. At that time, two persons who I knew quite well and worked with, Professor John Agard and Professor Dennis Pantin, both of whom sadly passed away, too soon in their lives, hosted a workshop at the University of the West Indies, where we were looking. At that time, I was also a member of the board of the EMA, and Professor Agard was the chair of the EMA. And the assessment, we were trying to do an assessment, a kind of overall, cost-benefit analysis of major projects, trying to set a template for how do you do a cost-benefit analysis of major projects and major infrastructure proposals and so on. And that cost-benefit analysis was not purely economic, not purely dollars and cents. Yes, dollars and cents, but and in the dollars and cents, you had to look at what would be the benefits to the investor, assuming it was a private sector investor, more so if it is a foreign investor, because then that foreign investor would be taking profits out of the country. What were the economic benefits in terms of government revenue, in terms of employment, in terms of perhaps, depending on the type of activity, earned foreign exchange costs. And then you had to look at the environmental costs and what would be the impact on the environment, and the social costs. Would it require the displacement of people from where they live, and so on and so on? What would be the impact in terms of the labor market? Would these investments result in decent work, or would they essentially be low-paid, low-skilled employment? So that was a kind of framework, and there was a very important workshop. This is 20 years of time ago. You were probably still in primary school or something like that. But that approach, I don't think has been adopted since then. To apply, and this is what the University of the West Indies ought to be doing, to apply that kind of modeling and plug in information. So I was looking at and I don't have all the data, I don't have all the information, so I can't do that kind of overall assessment of an AI data center. And so yes, AI data centers are things that have been built all over the world because, as you mentioned, artificial intelligence computing requires huge amounts of capacity of storage and computing capacity, and therefore you need huge servers. And these things have to be powered by electricity and cooled, and so significant amounts of water and electricity are involved. Now, they don't necessarily generate a lot of permanent employment. They would have a certain number of people employed, high skilled, high paid, which is good. On the other hand, I suppose in the construction phases, like every construction of every building, there'll be employment, short-term employment in construction of the building and the installation perhaps of stuff. All of the items that are going to go into those data centers essentially are going to be imported. The computers and so on, a lot of the electrical work and so on, all of those things are going to be imported. And therefore the significant part of the investment that is made by the company is not going to be money spent in Trinidad. It will be money spent on acquiring the computing capacity and other things required for a data center. Constructing like a huge factory shell and so on is not a huge investment. Some millions of dollars, but it's small compared to the cost of the computing equipment, which is not going to be made in Trinidad and Tobago, let's face it. So those are the kinds of factors. What would be the terms and conditions negotiated by the government? In other words, will there be, like many pioneer industries, as we call them way back in the 60s, will there be a tax-free period? Because many of these investors, they put the money up front, and therefore they want to recoup their investment over the shortest possible period of time, and therefore they don't want to pay taxes or very low taxes. So will there be like a 10-year or 15-year moratorium on the payment of taxes? If that is the case, then Trinidad and Tobago does not get any direct benefit as a result of the so the wealth that is generated of those centers, given the fact that there are AI centers being built all over the world. And therefore build up with, like ArcelorMittal, the companies then decide to pull out of Trinidad and Tobago. All of these things we have to look at very carefully when decisions like this are being made. We can't just, look a gift horse in the mouth. We have to examine it very, very carefully. And so the terms and conditions of the investment arrangement are critical. And what would be if, I saw franchise restaurants, American franchise restaurants coming into Trinidad. And somebody said, well, foreign investment will come in because the investor will have to put up money to come in. But we don't know if it is the foreign investor putting up money or a local investor that has the franchise, in which case it is a local investor putting up the money. There's no foreign exchange coming in. And simply what happens is that when you have a foreign branded restaurant chain, money goes out, because for every box of chicken or for every pancake that you buy, royalties get paid to the company that owns the brand, and therefore foreign exchange goes out the country, and therefore the net foreign exchange is a loss to Trinidad and Tobago. And we need to have that kind of rigorous analysis being made by economists, not just making statements that sound favorable to the government or critical of the government based upon your party affiliation, but serious, rigorous analysis. And unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago now, we don't get very much rigorous analysis of these decisions. And the business community, many of them make statements off the top of their head without examining the thing in great detail. So, if I can, let me now pivot to the issue of electricity and water, which data centers require huge quantities of. Now, there were two data centers being proposed, or there are two data centers being proposed. One is a 300 megawatt data center, and when you say megawatts, that's consumption of electricity. Yeah. Another one is a 150 megawatt data center. Now, they may actually use a bit more electricity than 300 megawatts and so on, or 150 megawatts. I don't know, because I don't have all the technical specifications in front of me. And that is what an environmental impact assessment and other proper economic assessments have to be done to get the actual technical data for each one of these data centers. Now, I did just a rough Google search, and there are some easy calculations that are available online, that a 300 megawatt data center would require 2.6 million gallons of water a day. A 150 megawatt data center would require 1.3 million gallons of water a day. So we're talking about 3.94 million gallons of water a day. Now, the country does not have 4 million gallons of water a day available. I mean, water came by me sometime yesterday afternoon, just after 6. I will probably go around 6 o'clock this evening. So just before this program, I just put in 2 loads of washing. We all did washing last night into the day, because we can't wash when water goes. And we will not, if water goes later today, 6 o'clock today, what is today? The 15th?
The 16th.
Or 16th, which is a Thursday. Yeah. Water probably will not come back until next week, Friday. So we will not have water in our village for 8 days. All right? And there are parts of the country that have worse supplies of water than we do. Right. So water is not available. It therefore means that you have to get water by other means. So I'm hearing about the establishment of desalination plant and so on. Who is going to pay for supply to the AI center? Are they going to pay for the establishment of the desal plant? Because desal plants are very expensive to establish and to run. Is it going to be a WASA arrangement, in which case at what price will WASA charge the AI center for water? Because the desal plant that we do have, the major one in Point Lisas, WASA pays way more for that water than it earns from the sale of that water, even to the industrial plants in Point Lisas. So those are the kind of questions. Now, I did hear something about using a pond. You know, the using St. Madeleine pond or something like that. I'm not sure that that has enough water, particularly in the dry season. You know, Petrotrin, the refinery had huge lakes, really, not just ponds, but a huge lake. And one year during the dry season, it was running low on water. And the refinery, I don't think, would have used quite as much. They use water for cooling purposes, but they wouldn't use as much water as a dedicated AI center. So, you know, those kind of off-the-cuff, VAP statements by government ministers don't cut it. You need to get very detailed engineering studies on this thing. I did hear the Prime Minister say that could be located somewhere near the Beetham, and that the wastewater plant at Beetham could supply relatively Point Lisas. Of course, that project was never completed. There was a huge cost, and the country never recovered that cost during the partnership. That was expended during the partnership time. But theoretically, it is possible to clean wastewater and use that for cooling purposes. But again, who is going to expend the money to complete that that process of cleaning up that water? Because we expended, I can't remember what it was, $800 million, $1 billion, and that project was never completed. So water is a major factor, and you need to get details of that. The second thing is electricity. Now, at the moment, we do have installed 1,950 megawatts of generating capacity. Trinidad Generation Unlimited down in Labre produces or generates 730 megawatts. Power Gen Point Lisa 763 megawatts, and their Penal power station about 234, and there's a smaller power station in Point Lisa known as Trinity about 225, about 1,950 megawatts of installed capacity. Now, I was trying to locate the RIC's latest data, but I think the RIC's website is down, and I couldn't locate. I was trying to find it. I do have it somewhere on my desktop. Their determination of electricity when they proposed a rate increase about 2 or 3 years ago, to see what is the actual consumption of electricity, because we are not using all of that 1,950 megawatts that we have capacity to produce. Now, the power producers don't necessarily produce all of that. They produce something below that, but they have the capacity to produce 1,900 megawatts. The issue, though, would be if the refinery is restarted, and we certainly hope the refinery is restarted, and then we are hearing of the restart of the steel mill. The steel mill was the largest single consumer of electricity in the country. The refinery would have been probably the second largest consumer of electricity. If those get restarted, or when they get restarted, and then we have a number of petrochemical plants in Point Lisas that are idling at the moment, and assuming that we get sufficient natural gas in 3 years' time, Lorraine, Mannequin, and also the Dragon gas field, which is Venezuela's gas, assuming that we get those gas getting into Trinidad, and therefore the petrochemical plants will be restarted and the LNG will be running at full capacity, and assuming that the refinery is restarted and the steel mill is restarted, then in my view, there will be very little spare capacity. I don't have an actual figure, but there'll be very little spare capacity in terms of our generation, installed generation capacity, because we shut down the Port of Spain B power station some years ago, and that would have given us another 300 or so megawatts of generating capacity, but that is shut down. So you have to have what is known as spinning reserve. In other words, you need to make sure that in case one power station has a problem, that the other power stations are not running at full capacity, and therefore they could pick up the load. And that is how you design your generation capacity in relation to your electricity demand. So if all of the data centers get established, the steel mill is back up and running, the petrochemical plants up and running, and the refineries up and running, I don't think that we have enough installed generating capacity to run all of that. And those are the issues that therefore need to be addressed fully by the government. ICNTT has to make a clear statement about what it can supply, and it can't just say that in relation to the AI centers. You have to say that in relation to what may happen with the steel mill, what may happen with the refinery. Now, one of the other issues is that all of our generating capacity is located south of the Caroni River. As I mentioned, Point Lisas power station, 760 megawatts, run by PowerGen, Trinity 225 also in the Point Lisas area, in Phoenix Park, really, industrial estate. Then you go to Pinal, then you go down to Labre. So all of that is located in the deep south. If you then put up AI data center in, say, the Betham, where you may have access to the wastewater treated out of the Betham wastewater treatment plant, you then are really moving electricity on your transmission lines from over long distances, and you get significant power losses when you transmit electricity over such long distances. Or you also raise a risk that if there was something that goes wrong with your power supply. I mean, yesterday morning I was working on my computer, sending out emails with respect to the Tuesday Talk, the recording of the Tuesday Talk, which happened on Tuesday night. And there was a dip in electricity. The electricity went for maybe, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. Later in the morning or very early afternoon, just after lunch, it went again. So if you have, and I'm sure that's not peculiar to where I am, I don't know what caused it, but if you have dips in the electricity supply, that is not good for a data center, because those things have to be running on very efficient electrical supply. So all of these are major issues. And therefore, we need to do a very careful cost-benefit analysis, which takes into consideration our water, our electricity, heat which will be generated, noise pollution, and other factors before any decision is made.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to sticking this for the public watching, what is one message, because you give very informative information, what is one message you'd like the public to take away from the conversation in terms of being able to just track or take better care of what we already have in terms of this being set up for further references?
Yes, well, first of all, we need to have a very detailed cost-benefit analysis done. And the problem is, who is going to do that? In other words, it should be done, in my view, by an independent group of experts. In the same way that many years ago when the highway was being built, the San Fernando to Point Fortin Highway, and Dr. Wayne Kublas-Singh and the people in the highway route committee or group raised objections, he was able to get the government at the time to set up an independent team, which was chaired by Dr. James Armstrong, who's a planner. And so that team had experts, economists, and persons who had knowledge, engineering knowledge in terms of highway construction, but not only that, in terms of hydrology, in other words, the water flow, how does water flow from the east to the west coast, and so on. So you really need to have, for transparency and for the integrity of that study, in my view, quite apart from the EMA having to do its legally required work, but the EMA will not do a cost-benefit analysis in terms of the economic costs. They wouldn't take into consideration things like electricity demand and supply and so on and so on. They would have to look at the environmental issues. So I think we need to have an independent study commissioned by the government, perhaps, but with highly reputable, not partisan persons, not people could say, well, that is a government person or economist or political scientists who are always defending the government. No, we want to have a really independent group of experts doing a serious cost-benefit analysis and providing the country with all of the information. That would be my takeaway, quite apart from perhaps some of my own concerns about the direction of this. And when we're discussing AI more generally, which is not what we're discussing now, we have to look at issues around the ethical use of AI. And the person who is best suited to advise us on the ethical use of AI is our own Professor Renee Cummings, Trinidadian, who unfortunately we just don't make use of her tremendous talents and knowledge and technical ability.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah, for giving us persons who we definitely need to be in contact with to have the public just be a bit more edified on AI use in that ethical way. But also thank you for sharing your informative knowledge on the cost of AI data centers that is happening globally, as well as what is happening right here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thanks for having me, Takia.
Absolutely.
Have a safe and good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Guys, we are about to take a short break, but when we come back, we have more engaging conversations, so stay with us.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
There are limitations in all the healthcare sectors, not just this country, where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors and nurses to provide that quality care. We're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, the emotional support that they need, advice. That gap, you are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patients.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back. Continuing with our Beyond the Headlines segment, school policies on grooming and appearance have long been the subject of public debate. While many schools say the rules promote discipline and uniformity, others argue that some policies unfairly target students with Afro-textured hair, forcing them to alter or hide their natural hair to fit accepted standards. The conversation goes beyond the hairstyles. It's about identity, culture, self-expression, and whether school regulations unintentionally discriminate against students based on their natural hair texture. Joining us this morning to discuss the important issue is Zakia Uzama-Wadada from the Emancipation Support Committee, who has been advocating for greater awareness of discrimination faced by students with greater Afro-textured hair in Caribbean secondary schools. Good morning, Zakia. Hi, good morning.
I'm barely hearing you.
Okay.
I'm barely hearing you.
No problem at all. We have that.
Okay, it's a little better now.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
So,
good morning to your audience. Yes.
Yeah. Getting to it right away, for many who may not be familiar with the issue or may not have it come to the forefront, what do we mean by discrimination against people with Afro-textured hair in secondary schools?
Well, I think that we have had some challenges, of course, which is very much connected to the enslavement experience.
Yeah.
That, you know, the texture of our hair has always been a challenge as part of how we were perceived as African people. I think we are the only group of persons on the face of the earth who have the quality of hair that we have, that texture, tight curled hair, you know, but we were always made to feel that there was something wrong with that hair, you know, and therefore persons were always, you know, even as children in school, you might have been heckled because of the texture of your hair, because it did not grow as in the way in which the hair of other persons of other groups would have grown. And therefore, it was just part of the what you would call it, the intent to make African people feel less beautiful. You know, something was wrong with the color of their skin, something was wrong with the texture of their hair, something was wrong with how we carried ourselves, something was wrong with how we worship. And I think it was just that part of the downpression of African people. And of course, the colonization of our minds to believe that things that were not black were better, you know. So therefore, the standard of beauty was judged by European standards, the texture of hair judged by the hair of Europeans, you know. So it was really just part of that whole colonization and enslavement process that would have remained with us even post the enslavement kingdom.
And even along the lines, many schools would say that grooming policies are about discipline and maintaining standards. So where do you think the line is crossed into discrimination?
Yeah, well, you know, again, how grooming is perceived will again be determined by the psyche and the state of mind that we have been, what you would call it, you know, become, what you would call it, with which we have been indoctrinated. So that we ourselves tend to feel that our hair is not neat, you know, and therefore and therefore, again, if you're using European standards, then you're going to think, well, okay, our textured hair has to look as close as possible to that European standard for it to be accepted as neat and tidy. So that would have been the baseline. So, for example, that can also be used as an excuse as to why, you know, people continue to discriminate against textured hair and the various hairstyles that go with it. I would give you a personal example. One of my second to last son had passed his common entrance for Fatima College, and because he wore dreadlocks as well, but he went to school with his dreadlocks pulled back in one. But when he went to the school, they also spoke about, you know, their standards of tidy and neat hairstyles and so on. And I mean, I had to stand up and make the argument that there was nothing untidy about his hair, and to actually put up a fight to ensure that he continued to go to school there, you know, and that he was not accepted in the school just because of the fact that he wore locks. And because I stood firm with respect to his right to be there, he was able to be the first person with dreadlocks to go to Fatima College. I don't know if they've had anybody else since, but he was at the time. So it is really, again, based on our perception. So locks were considered, I mean, when in Trinidad and Tobago, persons first wore locks, I mean, it was really considered very negative. It was looked upon, you know, with a lot of disdain. Right. You know, and of course, us using our natural hair, we always felt that at a certain time we needed to straighten our hair, we needed to press it to be accepted in the society. Yeah. But I think over years, and you know, with work like organizations like the Emancipation Support Committee, like the National Joint Action Committee in particular, and through the Black Power Revolution, we begin to understand and accept that there was absolutely nothing wrong with our hair. That our hair was beautiful, it was special. You know, we were the first group of persons upon the earth, and therefore all that naturalness that made us really very special. The fact that we are the only persons on earth that have hair with this kind of texture. And of course, and it was felt that our hair could not grow, you know, but you know, we were able to disprove that with the fact that people now have long locks, sometimes all the way down to the ground with this, you know, which is part of the capacity of our own hair to grow, you know. So it is really just about us, and I want to indicate that our theme for this year is Igniting African Consciousness, and that is the theme of the Emancipation Support Committee for the Pan-African Festival TT 2026, is Igniting African Consciousness and Dismantling Colonial Legacies. Yeah. And one of those colonial legacies is indeed the attitude to our hair. And we have to accept, though, even though it is still a challenge in some quarters, we have made significant progress. You know, because I think even at the level of government, we've had persons with dreadlocks, we've had persons, members of our parliament being very happy to wear their hair naturally. So we've made a significant amount of progress. You have persons with locks and with wearing their natural hair, working in banks, and I know, and in a lot of the corporate world, people are now being accepted. Of course, we are still having some challenges, I think, at the level of our schools, due to some of the, you know, the still colonial mentality and attitude of some of our teachers, perhaps principals, who still frown upon certain African-styled, African hairstyles, I should say. So we still have some of that, but I do think that there is enough understanding, general understanding in the society that that is no longer acceptable. Right. So we'll always find that the majority of the society will push back against those kinds of discriminatory actions by persons in school. And the more of us that accept that we are beautiful and that our hair is very beautiful and special, it means that it will become more and more difficult for persons to continue to take up that stance.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that we're still having that problem in some of the schools. So do you believe that the Ministry of Education should take up a role in forming, or even with public administrators, to help make it in a way that persons or students' identity and self-esteem and confidence can be respected in a way where that discipline doesn't cross the line into discrimination?
Well, I do think that under the former government, the former regime, there was an attempt by that ministry to ensure that this practice will not continue, because there was a code that was what you would call it, instituted, indicating that, you know, children, the issue of hair was not one, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but they did state that the children should not be allowed in schools because of their concerns of hair.
Right.
I think that was made as the broad context, but of course, because it said that that was, part of it said that was subjected to certain school rules and regulations, it left a little, what you would call it, leeway in there for principals, of course, to perhaps, in spite of that code, to still try to, you know, impact how they think children should wear their hair.
Right.
You know, so maybe there might be need for a very clear, maybe a stronger statement, and perhaps some more public education around this issue of cultural sensitivity. I think we have to be very careful that we do, that our service providers, our teachers, not only teachers, but persons who serve, maybe police officers, persons who serve the people, do not continue to serve with this colonial mindset that make them perhaps react differently to persons of African descent, you know, and how they treat them and how they respond to them. You see, so it is part of a much bigger picture, you know, so you would hardly find you have any issues of any hair issues with children who are not of African descent. Every time it raises its head, it will be always of African children. So it is, again, as I said, part of that mentality, and therefore there should be some revisiting of the code of ethics that was proposed with respect to hair, and that the fact that children should not be not allowed to go to school because of any hair issue, but move that little and strengthen it so that principals or teachers don't still find opportunity within that context to actually still try to, you know, impose school regulations that might not be in keeping with that overall code. You see, so it's continued work, but I also think as part of that, we also have to, within the society, have these real conversations, accept the fact that we do have remnants of that colonial attitude and psyche, not only with respect to this issue, but I know this is the one that you want to talk today, but with many other issues in the society. And therefore, at this point in time, we need to be educating our people much more so that they understand the basis where these attitudes come from, the fact that there's absolutely nothing wrong with African hair, and the texture of our hair. In fact, it is really beautiful and does amazing things and create amazing and beautiful hairstyles. We just have to now begin to see them through a different eyes so that we can appreciate the beauty.
Yeah. And in that last part of you sharing just now, can you talk of the importance from your experience, what you would have seen throughout the years of going from not accepting what is natural and beautiful as it is to now being a way to accept it? Can you just talk about that transition and how it's impacted persons' identity, self-esteem, and even confidence to go about things?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I was young, you know, and you were heckled in school about your hair, you know, my friends used to say that I had an ounce of plait and a pound of ribbon, you know, so they had those kinds of make feelings of discomfort, you know.
Right.
And of course, by the time you got to secondary school and you got to a certain class, your parents felt that it was necessary to straighten your hair, to press your hair. And I too did have to go through that personal experience. At the time, it was what was accepted. You see, again, if there's nothing that changes your mindset, you tell yourself, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to straighten your hair when you get to be a certain age, because we don't become adults and go to work, etc., with natural hair. That is kind of how the society, it was indicated in society. So people either wore wigs, or you straightened your hair, or you what you would call it, you would have ironed it every once a week or whatever to ensure that it stayed straight, you know. But what was very, I think, and I'm not saying, I'm sure there were some people who were still strong about that, but that was what the majority of people did.
Yeah.
But you would find that the Black Power Revolution of 1970 was very, very instrumental in us changing that attitude that we felt that, you know, our hair was not good enough, or that sentiment that our hair was not good enough. And you definitely, at that time, that Black power, that sense of, you know, renewal of self, that sense of, okay, black is beautiful. And then we had the music, because remember, the 1970s was not just only the Black Power Revolution here in Trinidad and Tobago. Between the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s, there was a lot of that same kind of sentiment in the United States, you know. And the music also really was telling us about the beauty of ourselves and the importance of us resisting, you know, that colonial mentality, and coming out of that, you know, sense of feeling of less because we were African people, and that we had to fight for our space in the world, fight for, you know, for who we are. So that, and the move to the National Joint Action Committee led Black Power Revolution made a very significant impact on us as young Africans, and accepting ourselves and appreciating our beauty.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was the beginning of the transition of acceptance, you see. And then people would probably wear their afros, so that now afros became fashionable, and people were happy to sport and to wear their African hair. So I think that was the beginning of the transition. I think some years after and of course at the same time, the whole dreadlocks, the Rastafari culture, you know, and way of life was also spreading, you know. So therefore people were beginning to have an option to wear dreadlocks, and, you know, that was now a little harder to accept at the time, you know, but at least people were beginning to have the courage to also move on. And so some people, of course, continue to have their dreadlocks and so on. So therefore, excuse me, this seems to give me a little trouble here.
Sure, no problem.
Sorry. Yes. So that was really the space in which we had to navigate, you know, at that time. So I think the continued work of the national organizations like the National Joint Action Committee, the Pan-African organizations in Trinidad and Tobago, the Emancipation Support Committee, and in particular, you know, the growth of the celebration of emancipation gave us a renewed sense of self and beauty, and our own pride and beauty, our own regality as a people, you see. And therefore, you know, accepting your natural hair has gradually become something that is more acceptable in the society. And like myself, I'm so proud to see you as a television announcer sporting your 2 cornrows. You know, in those days that will not be happening on TV, you see. So we have come a long way, and we have to accept the progress that we have made. And I think our African brothers and sisters, particularly our African sisters, are very happy to now, you know, wear their hair naturally. A lot of our children are coming up with dreadlocks. My grandchildren all have locks. I have 4 of my 5 children who wore locks. so that so that it is becoming more mainstream and accepted.
Yes.
And I think that is a real great progress. And so therefore, where we still have those pockets of persons who continue to resist, I think eventually everybody will come along.
Yeah.
You know, and of course we have to maintain that, you know, building consciousness and helping people to accept. And the fact and also understand, even from a health perspective, straightening your hair constantly and those things destroy your hair. You know, you lose hair after time, you know. I mean, I know of course, I know we also have the weave culture again, which is a copy from, you know, some European and American standards, you know. But eventually, I do think I know that more and more people are accepting their natural hair. They are also accepting the health risks and the damage to their hair done by some of these artificial, you know, what you would call it, all the different things that they do to their hair, you know, the weaving and the straightening and so on. It's not healthy for your hair, you see? And a lot of people have lost hair through that process. So even from a rational, you know, and health point of view, it makes sense to wear your hair and take care of your natural hair. It might even be less costly. Although I know now even hairdressers are charging, you know, good funds to take care of natural hair as well. But better we spend the money that way than to be doing things that are damaging to our hair. Absolutely. And to know that we are beautiful. That the fact that we have we are the group of people on earth who only group that have that hair means that we are very special. Yeah? And therefore people need to see it that way and not see it as, you know, it is not good because it is not mainstream. It is not what everyone else has. And when you have something that is different, that makes you special. You see, and we have to start seeing it that way. That's the kind of conversation we have with our children. There are things that our hair can do that other people's hair cannot do. As well, you know. And I think that makes us special and beautiful.
Absolutely. And you started answering my other question that I wanted to ask in terms of just, you know, having the conversation with your children. So to the parents and also the students who may still be dealing with discrimination in school places, what advice would you give to the students themselves and even to the parents to support their children at this time?
Yes, right. So it starts with accepting and letting them know from ground zero, from day one as they are growing, that they are beautiful and special human beings upon this earth. You see? So, and that, you know, the opinion of others. You know, I'll give you an example. So, for example, when my son went to, it's the same son who I told you had the challenge trying to get into Fatima. When he was going to his primary school, one of his teachers told him that his hair looked like a mop. So, of course, his teacher, so he came home, of course, not feeling very good. So he said, Mommy, Miss told me my hair. So I said to him, come on, do you think your hair look like a mop? No, Mommy. I said, I don't think so either. So it means that nothing is wrong with you, nothing is wrong with us, but maybe Miss has a little challenge. Because if Miss sees something that we don't see as a mop, but she sees it as a mop, then the challenge is with Miss. But we will not let Miss know that we know that. So you will continue to deal with Miss with the utmost respect and so on. But all you have to keep in your mind is that the issue is not with you, it is not with your hair, but the issue is with your teacher.
Wow.
But we will not let her know that we know that, because I don't want him now to go back to school thinking that he needs to be disrespectful to his teacher in any way. So the point is so that he then begins to understand, as a little, he was small, he was meant to have been in standard 1 or 2 or so on, that nothing is wrong with him. And we have to make our children know, not because others say something to you that is negative, it means that something is wrong with you. Yeah? Because once you are able to convince them, no, you are acceptable, you are beautiful, you are, you know, you are intelligent. We tell our children and we make our children know the beauty of themselves and their heritage. Yes? and let them know what their history was. So we learn our history so we can we can ground our children in their own history and understanding of themselves and who they are in this world at this time.
Yeah.
Once we are able to do that, we arm them, you understand, with what they require in order to defend themselves against attacks or discriminatory attitudes of others and so on. You know, so that's what we have to do. You know, there's fine little ways to make our children know that absolutely nothing is wrong with them, that all is well with them, that they are beautiful, and that the opinions of others does not define who they are.
Yeah.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And just lastly, to add in and even to get your views on it, in terms of having this newer generation coming up with social media being a thing. So everything you just said is absolutely on top-notch information that we should take and be willing to inform the ones that we have closest to us, and even parents telling their children, not everything on social media is to be followed or is to take into your own and think you have to be like that. There is uniqueness in being original and accepting you for your natural beauty as is. Yeah.
Yes, it is important that we ground our children, you see, so that they have to be rooted and grounded, as we say, in who they are, so that they have what I call reference point.
Yes.
From which they assess what they receive.
Yes.
You see, so that they can, because of the grounding that they have, they can able to say when they see certain things coming at them, this is not okay. You know, because from the reference point from which or the lens through which I look at the world says to me that that's not okay. You understand?
Yeah.
That is not for me, or that does not align with who I am and what I understand myself to be. So grounding our children, you know, even at long time we would say, our parents, for example, may have been so strict with respect of what we do and what we did not do.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when you grow into being an adult, in making a decision, your reference point was, no, my mother will not be happy if she knew I did something like that.
Right.
Or my dad will not be happy, because they grounded us in how they wanted us to relate to the world and to the society, and to know what is acceptable and not is acceptable, and it became part of who we are and what assisted us in making our decisions.
Yeah.
You see? So once we are able, yes, to do that with our children, it assists them. It is still a challenge for them, because
Right.
it is a lot of information coming to them.
Yes.
But we have to keep having the conversations with them, so that they understand that their views, their worldview, their view as African youth, that it is okay to hold on to what they have been taught,
Yeah.
and to look at whatever else is coming at them through those eyes, so that they can see, okay, no, that doesn't identify with me or who I am. That's going to be uncomfortable for me to do.
Right.
That's uncomfortable for me to accept, because it does not align with my understanding of myself and my place in the world.
Yes. Now, thank you so much, Ms.
Yes.
Uzama Wadada, for coming on this morning and having this conversation with me. It's very important to have these conversations, and
Yes,
to make it a continuous conversation, not to just have it started and no one else picks it up to continue it, but it's a continuous conversation that needs to keep happening. So thank you so much for coming on this morning and being a part of it.
Yes, thank you, and I want us to take courage. As I said, here I am as a dreadlocked woman on your show, and there you are as a young sister with your beautiful cornrows, looking as beautiful as ever. So even through this, you know, we are presenting an image that is that is showing that we are on a different pathway, and that we will win this battle, and all will be well. Yes.
Thank you. Have a great morning and the rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Guys, as we wrap up today's show, we hope that you enjoyed every conversation and there was something informative that you were able to take away from it. And as I always say to close, stay safe, stay informed, stay positive. Up next, we do have Sean Michael Small at 8 with Talking Points, so you'd want to come back for that. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Goodbye.
WESN.
In this day of stay at home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest